Hello everyone, my name is Jessica and I'm glad to be here with you again, sharing this interesting information and content about learning English. Today we have a really interesting lesson. It is relative clauses. Let's start. But first, let's think. Chicken, fox, and grain. This is a riddle that is very used for teachers to help the students to think, to train their minds, and to find solutions. So we are going to play and we are going to study this riddle to find the solution. Let's start. The farmer needs to get across the river, but he can only take one thing at a time with him in the boat. However, he has a fox, a chicken, and a bag of grain. If he takes the grain first and leaves the fox with the chicken, the fox will eat the chicken. If he takes the fox first, then the chicken will eat the grain. Wow, this is so inconvenient for the farmer. What should the farmer do? So, we will need to find the best solution for the farmer. We need to avoid the fox to eat the chicken to eat the grain. So, let's think. We are going to have 1 minute to find the best solution. So, let's time run. Okay, time's up. Let's continue. I know that you thought and found the best solution for this riddle. Now, we are going to see the answer. Are you ready? The farmer takes the chicken first. Then he goes back and takes the grain, so he can avoid the chicken to eat the grain. He leaves the grain and then takes the chicken back with him. He then leaves the chicken and takes the fox to wait with the grain. So, in this way, he will avoid the fox to eat the chicken. He then goes back and gets the chicken. And after that, we are sure that this poor farmer will need to rest. And if you see, this was the way he could avoid the fox to eat the chicken to eat the grain. I hope you had the same resolution. Okay, so we are going to continue. So let's dive deep into our subject. Today's lesson: what are the relative clauses? Let's see. Relative clauses are used to join two sentences or to give more information about something. They are regularly formed using relative pronouns, and these are who, whom in a formal context, that. These three are used for people when we are referring to people. Which, that we will use when referring to things. Whose for possession. Why for reason. When for time. Where for place. And they can refer to the subject or the object of the sentence. And just for us to be reminded, subject is the person, place, or thing performing the action or verb. Object is a noun or pronoun, and this is the person, place, or thing that receives the action. Let's continue. If the relative pronoun is followed by a verb, it becomes a subject pronoun. Here we have some examples. Glaciers are rivers of ice which form in cold climates on mountains. Here you can see that the relative pronoun is followed by a verb. The next example: the woman who lives next door is a doctor. The relative pronoun who is followed by the verb live. I don't like stories that or which have unhappy endings. In this sentence, we have the option to use that or which. Both of them apply to the subject. And also you can see that the relative pronoun is followed by the verb have. Where is the cheese that or which was in the fridge? Another example that we can use the relative pronoun that or which, and this is followed by the verb was. Let's continue. If the relative pronoun is not followed by a verb, but it is followed by a noun or pronoun, it becomes an object pronoun. And something important, object pronouns can be dropped in defining relative clauses. We will see this in a moment. Let's continue. We have some examples when the relative pronoun is not followed by a verb, but by a noun or pronoun. That was the man whose car was stolen. Here we have the relative pronoun whose followed by the noun car. The amount of fresh water that glaciers contain is greater than some lakes on Earth. The relative pronoun that is followed by the noun glaciers. He is one of the scientists whom I admire most. The relative pronoun whom is followed by the pronoun I. This was the place where we first met. The relative pronoun where is followed by the pronoun we. Let's continue. In written language, the relative clauses behave in two different ways. Defining clause and non-defining clause. So let's see about them. Defining clauses. These give us important information about the subject or the object and are not separated by commas. We have some examples. Friction is the force that resists the movement of one object against another. There's a boy in my class whose father is a professional tennis player. The house, which belongs to Yuli, is in London. As you may see in these examples, the writer is giving important information about the subject or the object, and we are not using any comma to provide that information. We are only using the relative pronoun to help us to give this information. Let's continue. The object pronouns in defining relative clauses, as I mentioned before, can be dropped. What does this mean? That we may or may not use it. Let's see some examples. The boy who or whom we met yesterday is nice. In this sentence, we cannot use who or whom. And we can say, the boy we met yesterday is nice. Let's see another example. The last time Dad, I saw Anna. She looked great. We can also omit or drop the use of the relative pronoun. And we can say, the last time I saw Anna, she looked great. I haven't seen Louise and Mary since the year that they got married. In this other example, we can also drop the relative pronoun and then we can say, I haven't seen Louise and Mary since the year they got married. You see, it's not affecting the sentence or the meaning. Let's continue. Now we will see the non-defining clauses. These give extra information and are separated by commas. We cannot use that as a relative pronoun in this type of clause. So we need to use which if the pronoun refers to a thing and who if it refers to a person. Examples: wrapping an object in aluminum foil, which reduces energy loss, keeps food hot. You see, this is extra information that we are giving in the sentence and is separated by commas. Let's see the next example. My mother's house, which I grew up in, is small. Here the writer is also giving extra information about his or her mother's house. The next example, my brother who lives in Canada is a lawyer. Here we are also getting extra information about the subject in the sentence. Let's continue. Now I will share with you a quote with some example of relative clauses. The one who falls and gets up is so much stronger than the one who never fell. This is a really interesting quote, and if you see, the writer is applying the relative clauses. Let's continue. Now it's your turn. For you to practice, you will need to work in pairs to write a conversation or dialogue and tell each other about people you met at a party last night. This is a scenario that you can use to apply relative clauses. Here you'll see 6 examples of people that you could met last night at the party. Once you finish, you can send the information to your teacher or you can share it with the rest of the group. I know you'll do great. I want to tell you that I appreciate the time that you have spent and shared with me today learning about the relative clauses. I hope you have learned what these relative clauses are and how they are used. And also, I want to say thank you. I appreciate your attention today, and I hope that we can meet in our next lesson.